Today, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Puran, Canto 8, Chapter 24, Text 52. Tam savalokeshvasarit prayishvaro Yatma Guru Janam Abhista Siddhi Tatapi Loko Nabhavantamandadir Jananti Santam Ridi Badakamaha Tvam, you, my dear Lord, Sarvaglokasha, of all planets and their inhabitants. Surit, the most well-wishing friend. Priya, the most dear. Ishvara, the supreme controller. He, also. Atma, the supreme soul. Guru, the supreme teacher. Jnanam, the supreme knowledge. Abhista Siddhi, the fulfillment of all desires. Tata api, still. Loka, persons. Na, not. Bhavantam, unto you. Andadi, because of blind intelligence. Janati, can know. Santam, situated. Ridi, in his heart. Badakamaha, because of being bewildered by material, lusty desires. Translation. My dear Lord, you are the supreme, well-wishing friend of everyone. The dearmost friend. The controller, the super soul, the supreme instructor, and the giver of supreme knowledge, and the fulfillment of all desires. But although you are within the heart, the foolish, because of lusty desires in the heart, cannot understand you. So we can say responsively now, my Lord, you are the supreme well-wisher, friend of everyone, the dearmost friend, the controller, the super soul, the supreme instructor, and the giver of supreme knowledge, and the fulfillment of all desires. But although you are within the heart, the foolish, because of lusty desires in the heart, cannot understand you. The purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Srila Prabhupada. Herein, the reason for foolishness is described. Because the conditioned soul in this material world is full of materialistic lusty desires, he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. Ishvara sarvabhutanam rididi tisti arjantistiti. Rideshi arjantistiti. It is because of this foolishness that one cannot take instructions from the Lord, although the Lord is ready to instruct everyone both internally and externally. The Lord says, Dadadi buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. In other words, the Lord can give instructions on devotional service by which one can return home back to Godhead. Unfortunately, however, people do not take this devotional service. The Lord, being situated in everyone's heart, can give one complete instructions on going back to Godhead. But because of lusty desires, one engages himself in materialistic activity and does not render service to the Lord. Therefore, one is bereft of the value of the Lord's instructions. By mental speculation, one can understand that one is not the body, but a spirit soul. And unless one engages in devotional service, the real purpose of life is never fulfilled. The real purpose of life is to go back home, back to Godhead, and live with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Play with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dance with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And eat with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These are different items of Anand. Spiritual happiness in spiritual variegatedness. Even though one may come to the platform of Brahma Bhuta and understand his supreme identity by speculative knowledge, one cannot enjoy spiritual life without understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is indicated here by the word abhistasiddhi. One can fulfill the ultimate goal of life only by engaging in devotional service to the Lord. Then the Lord will give one proper instruction on how to go back home, back to Godhead. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskacha Desatarani. This verse finishes, the last line in the verse says, but although you're within the heart, the foolish, because of lusty desires in the heart, cannot understand you. The phrase used is bada kamaha. Bada means bound, trapped, fastened. Kamaha means lust. Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 2, verse 62 says, Dhyayato vishayang pungsa sangasteshu pajayate sangjayate kamaha kamakrodo bijayate. That while contemplating the objects of the senses, attachment develops. From this attachment comes lust. From unfulfilled lust comes anger. The next verse goes on to say, from the anger becomes delusion, then bewilderment of memory, then intelligence is lost, then one falls back down again into material entanglement. So lust is the cause of our bondage. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Rishabdev, Maharaj's instructions to his sons, in chapter 5, verse 7 of the 5th canto, Rishabdev says, Pumsa Shriya Mituni Bhavam. That the male-female principle of attraction is the basic principle in which material existence perpetuates. In the Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 29, verse 85, where Narad is instructing King Habari, the purport says, everyone in the material world is here on account of looking for sense gratification. And this sense gratification creates a hard knot of material existence. This sense gratificatory attraction is most prominent in males being attracted to females and females being attracted to males in every species in this material world. This mutual attraction of the male to the female is poetically classified under Grantim Hridayan, the knots in the heart. So the idea of this compound word, Grantim Hridayan, is that there becomes an entanglement. There becomes a very difficult situation to resolve, which is basically on account of lust for male for female and general attraction to material relationships. In tomorrow's verse, this word is mentioned, Grantim Hridayan. It's throughout the Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada uses this term extensively throughout the purports. Sutta Goswami, instructing the sages of Naimisharanya, in this Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, Sutta Goswami answers 6 questions that the sages have put to him. In the 2nd chapter, there's a lot of famous verses which devotees constantly recite, which substantiates our philosophical understanding. Verse 17 is Srinvata Svakadam Krishna. 18, Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu. Number 19 is Tata Rajas Tamo Bhavan. And in verse 21, it states, Vidyate Rida Granti. 17 to 21, summary is 17, Paramatma cleanses the heart of material enjoyment of one who has developed an urge to hear about the pastimes of Bhagwan. 18 is, by hearing the Bhagavad Puran and rendering favorable devotional service, loving bhakti develops within the heart. 19 is, as bhakti develops, lust and desire are diminished from the heart. 20 is positive science of the process of devotional service is gained through the activities of applying oneself to devotional service. And 21, the knot of the heart, Rida Grantim, is cut. So this theme of Rida Grantim is throughout the Bhagavatam, that this condition within our heart of our being attached to material relationships is the cause of our continuance within samsara. Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse 15 says, the knot in the heart is caused by the spiritual spark contacting the material elements, and this is causing ahankar, this false bodily conception, this false ego thinking the body to be myself. In the Bhagavatam, Canto 3, verse 20, chapter 24, verse 4, the renunciation of Kardama Muni in which Kardama Muni is instructing Devahuti, it says in the verse, Chetate Hridayan Grantim, that Lord Vishnu is saying, Kardama Muni is quoting Lord Vishnu is saying that the vanquished, this Chetate Hridayan Grantim literally means the vanquished knot of your heart, which is how Lord Vishnu describes it. In the purport, it is described how matter and spirit, being joined together by false ego, people hanker for material possessions, society, friendship, love, and this knot of affection is very strong. From this knot of affection, Griha, Kshetra, Sutta, Api, and Vita developed. That's Griha is home, Kshetra is land, Sutta is children, Apta is friends, Vita is money. There comes a great desire to accumulate these things, laboring under the false concept that the body is the self. In the Bhagavatam 1:8-41, in the prayers by Kunti, she prays, May sneha pasam imam chindi, that my tie of affection for my circumstances is cut. She said, Lord of the universe, please sever my ties of affection to my family. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Queen Kunti is appealing to the all-powerful Lord who can do absolutely anything to please cut the hard knot of my family affection. Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 49th chapter, verses 17 to 26, describes when Akura took a message of Krishna Balaram to Dhritarashtra. Akura was saying, when Pandu passed away, you assumed the royal throne. Now you should please treat all of your relatives equally. The sons of Pandu, as well as your own sons, the sons of Dhritarashtra. He speaks very eloquent for 6 or 7 verses. And in verse 25, he said, you should look upon material circumstances as a dream, just like a magician's illusion, just like a fantasy of the mind, and you please using your intelligence to do what is dharmic, to do what is just and fair. In verse 26, Dhritarashtra rejects Krishna and Balaram's message delivered by Akura. He says his reason is because my unsteady heart is prejudiced by affection for my sons. In the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 84, verse 61, in Kurukshetra, it is said in the verse, 2 words, come to note, Pashaha, which is a noose, which is a rope, which ties a person, and Sneha, which is affection. So taking Nanda Maharaj by the hand, Vasudeva says to him, God himself has tied the knot called affection, which tightly binds human beings together. It seems even great heroes and mystics find it difficult to free themselves from this noose, this rope, this Hridaya Granthi, hard knot within the heart. In the Bhagavatam, Canto 5, chapter 8, verse 27, Sukadeva Goswami is describing the pastimes of Bharat Maharaj, particularly with reference to the deer, to which he became very, very affectionate. He said in verse 27, at the time of death, Bharat Maharaj's mind was absorbed in thoughts of the deer in its little deer's body. And when he left this world, he took the body of a deer on account of his affection. So, this entanglement on account of affection, it affects us, me and you. It affected Devahuti, Queen Kunti, Dhritarashtra, Nanda Maharaj, and Bharat Maharaj. So, we've spoken for half of the class. Half an hour has elapsed. We've come to the conclusion that ourselves, along with great personalities, are entangled according to bodily affection. So, is there a solution to this? Or are we just hopelessly entangled? Anadi, eternally. There is solution. And the solution also is throughout the Vedic scriptures. And our great teachers, our acharyas, have shown that each and every shastra, each and every section, each and every one of the principal verses is providing a solution to our entanglement. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, verse 124, Lord Chaitanya is instructing Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi. He says in this verse, Veda Shastra Kahe, Sambandha Abhideya Prayojanaha. So, the translation of this is, the Vedic literature gives information about the living entity's eternal relationship with Krishna, called Sambandha, the living entity's understanding of a relationship and how to act accordingly within this relationship. This is called Abhideya, and how the living entity can return back to Godhead, called Prayojana. In the purport of this verse, Srila Prabhupada has said, the real purpose of life is to go back home, back to Godhead, and live with the personality of Godhead. Play with the personality of Godhead. Dance with the personality of Godhead. And eat with the personality of Godhead. So, returning back to Godhead is a full spectrum opportunity to completely engage every one of our spiritual senses in the spiritual world of variegatedness in relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is called Prayojana. So knowledge of four items: ourselves, the universe, God, and internal relationships is called Sambandha. That's knowledge of this. And acting within this knowledge to develop this relationship is called Sambandha. And fulfillment of our human purpose is Prayojana Siddhi. So, in summary, Lord Chaitanya is describing to Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi, and the whole of Vedic literature, each and every scripture, each and every section is describing who is the Supreme, what is the best process to connect with the Supreme, and what is the ultimate goal of life. Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 15, verse 15 says, Vadaischa sarver aham eva vedya. That the purpose of all Vedic study is Krishna. Krishna himself is saying this. The purpose of the Vedas is to understand me. In the Vedas, the purpose, the goal, is stated in three ways. Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. Upasana is Upa, means sitting near the Lord, means sitting near. And asana, Upa means near, and asana means sitting close, sitting near. So sitting near, the purpose is for worship, for offerings, for contemplating. This is upasana. It's the whole science of worship. And the complete and perfect upasana is worship of Narayan, also known as Vishnu, also known as Hari. This is the goal of the Vedic upasana, to worship Lord Vishnu. Lord Shiva, he says in the Padma Puran, Aradhanam sarvesham Vishnor aradhananam. So the Aradhana is Sanskrit for glorification of the Lord. So the purpose, Lord Shiva is saying, is Vishnu Aradhanam. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was acting kindly towards Lord Chaitanya, feeling he was misguided and genuinely wanting to help him, he took him. Together they went into the Jagannath Puri temple. And in describing this in a lecture, Srimad Bhagavatam lecture, 1/5/24, here in Vrindavan, in August 75, Srila Prabhupada said, a Vedavadi is one who knows the object of the Vedas. So what is the object of the Vedas? This came to be the conversation, the discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. After listening to Sarvabhauma describe the understanding of Vedanta Sutra according to Shankaracharya, he asked Lord Chaitanya, he said, you have not said anything, you're just sitting listening, do you understand? Genuinely the student will ask the teacher for some clarification or some further elucidation. He said, are you understanding what I'm saying? Lord Chaitanya replied. He says, the aphorisms of Vedanta Sutra are very clear, but your purports are obscuring the meaning with an imaginary interpretation. Lord Chaitanya criticized the various aspects of Bhattacharya's philosophy. This goes on for a number of verses. And finally, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhyam, chapter 6, verse 178, Lord Chaitanya says, Bhagavan Sambandhe, Bhakti Abhideyahaya, Prem Prayojana, Vede Tinu Vastikaya. He said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the central point of all relationships. Acting in devotional service to Him is one's real occupation. An attainment of love of God is the ultimate goal of life. So, after 55 verses of discussion with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya explained Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. When Lord Chaitanya was speaking to the Mayavadi sannyasis, which is described in the Adi Lila, chapter 7, verse 146, talking about relationships, activities, and the ultimate goal of life, He said, these three subjects are explained in every verse, every aphorism of Vedanta Sutra, for they form the culmination of Vedanta philosophy. So Lord Chaitanya was very, very clear. This is the verse. The three subjects, these three subjects, Abhideya, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Parojana, knowing about relationships, acting within the relationship, and achieving the ultimate goal. It says these subjects are explained in every aphorism of Vedanta Sutra, and they form the culmination of all other Vedanta knowledge. In the Vedanta Sutra, chapters 1 and 2, there are 4 chapters in Vedanta Sutra. Chapters 1 and 2 discuss relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Sambandha Gyan is the knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. Vedanta Sutra chapter 3 describes how one can act within that relationship. Lord Chaitanya describes Abhideya Gyan as Jiva Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityardas, that the living entity is the eternal servant of God. This is our activity, this is our real activity, not all of these foolish temporary activity which become of having a material body. He's saying Jiva Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityardas is that the living entity is the eternal servant of Krishna. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, verse 108, Bhakti-Vinod Thakur makes a commentary on this verse. And in this verse, in his commentary, he identifies that the verse Jiva Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityardas is describing the living entity's Abhideya as Krishna's eternal servant. Similarly, if we go on, the 4th chapter of Vedanta Sutra describes the result of devotional service as being prayojana siddhi. And the final words, the last sutra of Vedanta Sutra, 4:23, is Avanriti Shabda, that liberation will be achieved through sound. That the liberated soul, by hearing about the Shastra, hearing about one's relationship with the Supreme Personality, and by acting within that relationship with the Supreme Personality, he will be liberated and never return again to this material world. And as well as in Vedanta Sutra, this is the conclusion of every revealed Shastra. In the Madhya Lila, chapter 25, verse 103, the essence of Bhagavatam, our relationship, our activities, the goal of life, is manifest in the 4 core verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, which were spoken by Narad to Vyas. And these verses, of course, is known as Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. And everything, the whole philosophy of the knowledge of our relationship, acting in this relationship, and achieving our goal of going back to Godhead is described in these 4 verses in chapter 2, Canto 2, chapter 9, verses 33 to 36. Sanatana Goswami is considered the Acharya of Sambandha, understanding what is our relationship with the Supreme. Rupa Goswami is considered the Acharya of Abhideya, acting within that relationship, such as following the different prescriptions in the nectar of devotion. And Raghunath Das Goswami is considered the Acharya of Prayojana. So the writings of Sanatana Goswami, one can gain knowledge of one's spiritual identity, whereas Rupa Goswami describes more how to execute devotional service and gives inspiration for increased surrender on the path of bhakti. And Raghunath Das Goswami describes Prayojana Siddhi, attaining one's ultimate goal. Now, Raghunath Das Goswami, he accepts the feet of Rupa Goswami, and he declares Rupa Goswami is his spiritual master. Rupa Goswami, he says that my spiritual master, who I take shelter from, is Sanatana Goswami. But Sanatana Goswami goes back and says, I take my inspiration from Raghunath Das Goswami. So rather than it being an ascending process, Raghunath accepts Rupa Goswami, Rupa Goswami accepts Sanatana Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami accepts Raghunath Das Goswami. In Vrindavan, we have a wonderful opportunity to dedicate our lives to the service of Krishna and going back home, back to Godhead. The Sri Govinda temple, Sri Govinda Ji Murti, is considered the manifestation of all Shiksha Gurus. Madan Mohan is considered the original Diksha Guru, from where all other Diksha Gurus get their potency. And Gopinath deity, Sri Gopinath Ji, is considered the ultimate inspiration in spiritual attraction. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 147, Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport that there is no difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Shiksha and Diksha Gurus, and anyone who makes this differentiation is sadly mistaken. Srila Prabhupada gives two examples of what we're talking about today. Sambandha, Abhideya, and Parojana. He said it's like in a business. In a business, two parties may do some investigation about what is the nature of the person supplying and what is the nature of the trustworthiness, the creditworthiness of the other party. So some investigation of the circumstance is undertaken. Then Srila Prabhupada says there is an exchange, there is activity. One person supplies goods or services and the other person pays for them. And the goal of both parties is to make profit. That is the goal. So there is the investigation, there is the activity, and there is a goal. Another example Srila Prabhupada gives is in marriage. He said the bride and the groom, it is arranged that they become married. Some investigation, some suitability, some jyotish, whatever, they decide, yes, we will go ahead with this. The Abhideya is the actual relationships. They're living together, they're cooking, they're eating, they're doing so many different activities, and the goal of their marriage, the goal of the relationship is children. So, the word prayojana literally means necessity. Mother Yasoda considered Krishna her ordinary child. She was so full of the necessity of loving Krishna, she was not aware of the process of Sambandha, Abhideya, and Parojana. She was just completely absorbed in Prayojana Prem, just thinking Krishna was just her ordinary child. This is the ultimate necessity. Lord Chaitanya describes this ultimate necessity in Chaitanya Charitamrita is Prem Pum Atho Maham. That the greatest achievement one can ever achieve is to be absorbed in a mood of Prem with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in one of the primary rasas. So Mother Yasoda, she's on the highest stage of necessity, of prayojana, and is completely absorbed in pure love of Krishna. And this love of God, according to the Shastras, according to our Acharyas, according to each Shastra, every verse in each Shastra, this love of God is the ultimate benediction for all human beings, as Lord Chaitanya states in one of Shikshastika prayers. So, we have in verse 52, Canto 8, Chapter 24, that, my Lord, you are the supreme well-wishing friend of everyone, the dearmost friend, the controller of everything, the super soul in all living beings, the supreme instructor, the giver of knowledge, and the fulfillment of all desires. So, Krishna is everything. Supreme friend, he controls every situation for his lila, for his pastimes. He's the giver of knowledge, the end of knowledge. He completely fulfills all our desires. So why does the living entity not simply reciprocate with the Supreme Lord in a loving exchange, which is the only reason we were created? The only reason for our existence, the only reason for our creation as spiritual sparks is that we can reciprocate with the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is there in our hearts as Paramatma. Supreme friend, full of knowledge, full of compassion, full of benediction. It's an ideal situation. Lord Krishna could not have manufactured a more favorable situation than the jiva accompanying the super soul, accompanying the jiva in all of the different bodies, super soul always being available. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes that as one progresses in samsara, one gets more and more entangled. So we see different species of life and the consciousness that these species have, and we can understand that there's progressive stages of entanglement within material bodies. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, although by one's activities, although by one's karma, one can be very, very entangled, he said, still, this facility, this capacity to surrender to the Supreme Lord is never lost. So it's described in Bhagavatam, there are thousands of manifestations of the Lord. And he appears as demigods, as rishis, in a human form, in an animal form. Srila Prabhupada said he even appears in the vegetable kingdom. Lord Krishna is continually available. But somehow or other, we are so foolish that we don't want to surrender. Why we don't want to surrender? Because Jayato Vishayam Pungsa, we are contemplating material objects. Initially we had a desire to enjoy separately from Krishna, outside the ambit of serving Krishna. We just considered, what would it be like if so Krishna has created the material world? There is a nice pastime. Narad Muni is with someone and they want to go to bathe. And after bathing, there is a whole series of adventure. They lose their family. Just so many things. Just material life becomes terrible. So finally, they lose their family. They lose their children. He loses a family, children. Then finally, it's full of sadness, full of grief. After the funeral pyre, he again takes his bath. He dips in, he pops up, and there is Narad Muni. Says, you see the illusion of material world and the grief it causes us? It's a dream, as Vidura is saying. It's a dream. It's a magician's illusion. It's phantasmagoria. It's imagination. But we are so intent, we are so convinced that we can achieve material satisfaction. We're so convinced of this that we pursue it anyway. So, Kathopanishad describing the two birds in the tree, the super soul, he just watches, observes the foolishness of the jiva trying to enjoy material life. But as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, no matter how abject, no matter how entangling, no matter how painful our situation is, according to our karma, according to our past misdeeds, at any time we can turn to Krishna, say, my dear Lord Krishna, you please take me, I am yours. Srila Prabhupada, he went to the West, he spent 9 years traveling to so many places, so many countries, saying exactly the same thing. Your greatest benefit is to surrender your life to Lord Krishna. Stop this foolishness. So one devotee in Australia, listening to Srila Prabhupada, becoming attracted to the message, deciding that he wants to apply himself to this, he asked Srila Prabhupada, how long does it take to surrender to Krishna? Prabhupada said immediately, it takes 1 moment. Are you pretending to do it? Or do you really want to do it? Krishna knows. And Krishna knows when you make that determination, I want to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am willing to follow the system described by the Acharyas, the system of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti, to please the Lord, this will be my only goal. Not what comes from the false ego. Not obtaining a nice residence, nice room. Not by buying some property where I can be safe, where I can be secure in my old age. Not by having family. Not by having very good friends. Not by accumulating some money in case of emergencies. So this insurance policy that we are undertaking to make sure that in future we are taken care of, because we don't know if we can completely trust Krishna to take care of us. There's so many jivas, so many species, so many different living entities that Lord Krishna, He must provide for. So he's very, very busy. I'm a humble person. I act very humbly. I don't demand his attention. Maybe sometimes he's not just completely taking, so let me take care of myself. This taking care of ourselves, this having some other agenda rather than complete surrender, a hoitiki, a pritiyata, unmotivated and uninterrupted surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This surrender to the process of sadhana bhakti as given by the Acharya of Abhideya, Rupa Goswami, in books like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this applying ourselves dutifully is our guarantee to go back to the spiritual world. Personally, I know of 4 different disciples of Srila Prabhupada who had written to Srila Prabhupada on some point. And in each of the letters, Srila Prabhupada said, same thing, same thing, paraphrased in each letter. He said, if you follow the regulative principles, if you undertake the process of sadhana bhakti, if you chant your japa, your prescribed 16 rounds every day, he said, you will go back to the spiritual world and see Krishna face to face. Prabhupada said, this is guaranteed. So, it's not that Srila Prabhupada came to the West with some process. His business was not to make some money, to have an ashram, to have at what point could he have stopped, built his house in Vrindavan, had a few disciples, and lived comfortably? Here in Vrindavan, I heard Srila Prabhupada say, he said, I was very happy living in Vrindavan. He said, but Krishna, he kicked me out. And because he inspired Srila Prabhupada to take seriously the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, go to the Western world, speak in the English language. We have now more than 550 ISKCON temples around the world. We have more than 80 temples here in India. There is huge facility to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who does not realize that this is a wonderful opportunity, ISKCON is the most wonderful thing that happened in the 20th century. Yesterday, we celebrated the anniversary of the registration of ISKCON. If a person does not realize this is a 24-karat golden opportunity, he is not here for sadhana bhakti. He is not here for sambandha, abhideya, prayojana. He is here for some other purpose, being affected by the entanglement of the spiritual spark in material consciousness, which is described as hridaya griyanti, the hard knot of material existence. So let us not be foolish. Let us take advantage of this system which is described in all the Shastras, which Lord Chaitanya described, which our Acharyas, Baladev Vidyabhusan, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta, that they have described for us, that Srila Prabhupada so mercifully took to the Western world. Let us today take that moment. My dear Lord Krishna, I am yours. Please allow me to do service and attain the goal of playing with you, dancing with you, eating with you, back in the spiritual world. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Haribo.